Welcome back to another insightful discussion here on the Champions Path, a platform for all things simulation and training based, designed for our champions in the military, law enforcement, and other emergency responder roles. And the Champions Path initiative was primarily founded as a promotional platform for simulation technology and a resource for valuable insights from industry experts and from the scientific and research community to the design and development teams of some of the world's most powerful training tools. So what about the end user, the cadre, the boots on the ground, the cops and service members that actually use the technology? Well, I'm excited to say that today's guest, Erek Machowski, is an officer and training instructor with the Chicopee PD, and is here today to discuss his experience with the A.U.Fire injury simulation system and discuss the impact to their training program. And if you haven't seen the discussion with Tim Pierce, the founder and CEO of A.U.Fire, I would advise to go and start there and listen to his incredible story. Erek, welcome to the Champions Path.
Thank you. Morning.
Yeah, good morning. We were talking before hitting the record, but it is definitely one thing to hear from the team that develops the simulation product, but it's another to hear from those who have purchased the system and are now using it. So if you don't mind setting the stage and delve into your background and what your position entails for the department.
Sure. So I've been on the job 16 years. I spent most of my career on the street working the beat 4 to 12. Half of that, probably about a good 6-7 years as a field training officer. And now in my current role, assigned to the training division full-time of our department, we have roughly about 135, 140 sworn members. It's been a journey for myself, and for the
Excellent.
past about 3-4 years, full-time doing this and trying to search for good tools to help my boys out.
Yeah, and we think we found one. What led your department to purchase the A.U.Fire system?
Well, so like I said, as a trainer, we're always trying to find, ways to improve personally and professionally. And part of that's recognizing gaps in training, always looking for, like I said, better products, trying to keep my eyes and my fingers on the pulse of, what's new and what's current. I had seen through some back channels the development of the A.U.Fire system, and going back now 2023 at the Alita conference in St. Louis, actually got to meet Tim was there, Pierce, with his with the product in conjunction with Milo, running basically a scenario through the Milo program, and got to try it out myself finally. And
Awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
How was that experience like?
Fantastic. I hate to say the term immediately sold. But I definitely did see the potential for the use in the training realm.
Yeah, the A.U.Fire system generally has that impact. And has your department actually purchased or explored options with virtual simulation systems, such as the classic projection-based or VR, AR?
Yeah, so we have a Milo system of our own. We have an early VR setup. Not the greatest in its first iteration, but looking forward to a better option. As the idea, as the research shows, if you can make something realistic, it's only going to increase the retention and repeatability in the real world.
Right. Yeah. We talk about traditional training versus this new age training delivery method of including simulation technology. And one of the advantages is not just a sense of higher physical fidelity, or in this case, a sense of realism of actually acquiring an injury. But another advantage is the emotional response and a higher sense of physiological response in training. And I call it the GAS meter, the GAS, the give a shit meter. But essentially, it's the trainee's sense of perceived importance to train due to an understanding that the experience closely relates to real world situations. And so there's the perception of benefit in being more present during the scenario. And so I have a two-part question. First, how did you traditionally train officers for situations involving injuries before using A.U.Fire?
Yeah, so, I think Tim says it best. We can teach you tactics. I can teach you how to shoot. I can teach you the post-shooting, medical side of it. But there's that small gap, that small window that up until this point, where we start getting in, technology involved, I have run my guys through scenarios that say we're wanting to do something as far as like, clearing malfunctions. Run them through a scenario using simulations and having them, okay, here's, take your support hand, tuck it in your vest, put it in your pocket, something of that nature. Try to limit them, their ability, give that constraint-led training and have them try to build a new neural pathway to solve the problem that they already know how to do. And, as I'm sure you know, there is a percentage of people that just, they resort underneath a stress, excuse me, underneath stress, they resort back to their well-worn neural pathway and how to solve the problem. That hand comes out and they'll go right into remediation. Knowing the reason why they do that, you can't fault them. That's the way the brain's wired. They're not trying to cheat. That's just what happens. Until you have the ability to legitimately restrain and constrain them, it's always going to resort back to that initial neural pathway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely understand that, and I've had experience with that when I was in the Marine Corps. We did the same things. Hey, you're injured. And then because of either the situation is just stressful or just subconsciously, because your hand and arms do actually work, you just resort to using them. So I definitely understand that.
Right.
And so, I guess you've had experience with this A.U.Fire system, virtual simulation systems. So the $1 million question is expectation versus reality. Have you witnessed a noticeable increase in officer engagement and realism of response in training scenarios since integrating A.U.Fire simulation kits?
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to say it, but we all have an idea of how we think we're going to respond or react under a given stimulus without having ever experienced it. Even in tourniquet training, we do plenty of training as most departments do. You line your guys up and, hey, all right, you got 45 seconds, know where your gear is, get it on quick. And guys respond well. They move fast. They put it on, tightly or maybe not so tightly, depending on where they are. And then, you move forward and keep up with the repetition, thinking that's going to be repeatable. What we've seen in implementation of A.U.Fire is, twofold. First, like you mentioned, the emotional and psychological side of it. Let me quickly revert back to how we implemented this. We put it right into our regular in-service training, built it into reality-based training segment that we usually have in the springtime. I took an hour out of the first day of our training to kind of have it be like a meet and greet with the A.U.Fire system. Classroom setting, quick little brief history, reason why we're doing this, give them the why, give them the buy-in of why we're doing it, and then took the time to have someone or maybe two volunteers that want to come up in front of the class. Non-reality based, just slide them on. Let's go through the levels, see how it feels, give them an idea of what it's like. And then the next day, put them through, we developed an ambush scenario where there was no surprise. You're going to get ambushed. There's going to be threats, lethal threats from multiple directions. You got to work through it. And, if you're hit, you're going to fight back. You're going to self-apply your tourniquet. You're going to have your buddy apply it. That's going to be your choice, the circumstance. Having all that buildup, the anxiety that you can see on people's faces just when they slide the sleeves on, amping themselves up a little bit internally, it's fantastic. That's real. That's a side of realism that you get when you're going into a house when you're hitting a warrant. Things of that nature. That's that anxiety that you can't replicate just telling someone, all right, hey, your arm's out of play.
That's a good point.
So there's been that side of it. There's also been the after, some detractors, maybe not initially wanting to, and, thankfully due to peer pressure, everyone's jumped on board. Everyone in the room's like, oh, if I'm doing it, you're doing it. But the after effects of seeing them in these scenarios and having the real responses to it, that initial shock, as I'm sure initial shock when you get hit by the device, needing that one split second of mental break of, no, I have to disregard the sensation, get back to the task at hand, and do what I got to do. The response has been really good.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
No plan survives first contact with the enemy. And I think it's incredible that you've incorporated A.U.Fire as in a crawl, walk, run manner in a gradual stress exposure. And so, were there any hurdles when integrating the A.U.Fire system into your program?
Yeah, no, we got full support right away from the administration. After I had met with him at ALETA last year, we spoke offline at the conference for a bit, and he graciously gave me a unit to T&E, and I brought it back last summer. I put as many people as I could just randomly through it, and even my chief, and 100% support from him. But, obviously things cost money, so we brought the mayor down into the chief's office and put him in.
What was his reaction to it?
His reaction was, he asked the price, hey, what do these things cost? And threw out a number. I replied back, and 4 of them cost that much. He goes, well, then buy 4.
One of the incredible benefits of this specific simulation system is not only the primary impact, and you had brought up, which is the loss of motor function in a limb, so removing a seat belt and exiting a vehicle or unholstering a weapon, really makes the scenario much more realistic. But there are also secondary and tertiary training impacts, such as one-handed reloads or medical treatment, like applying the tourniquets. And so, the expectation is to build confidence through the experience. And, like you had brought up, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face, and really, reverting back to training or experience. And so have you observed improvements in officer performance in dealing with these physical stressors?
To a degree, I will say so. Our first iteration with this was through the in-service training, and everyone went through that scenario, that ambush scenario. At this point right now, we haven't had a lot of secondary exposures with using the device, using the system. So I can't quantify it yet, the major improvements. I will say, however, as you mentioned, the confidence level, definitely immediately responsive. You can see on someone's face after the scenario is over, power's off, limbs back to normal, and they're amped, they're hyped, they're either happy with how they performed or they're not happy with how they performed, which I would argue is even better. To most people's credit, it drives them to want to be better.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And what about the cognitive function? How has the simulator impacted decision making or communications?
So, yeah, you can see a definable difference to those with experience in tense situations to those that don't, as far as their communication level, whether they go internal, completely lock up all audio function, and just start going to work on themselves, whether they communicate and let their partner know. I don't want to tell them what to do. That's why in the onset scenario, it's literally, hey, you're going to get an ambush scenario. Do what you feel is best. Remember the words we talked about yesterday. Don't stop until we say in scenario. And then we'll want to prime them a little bit. So if someone gets hit and they're having the mental lock, the brief mental lock, and they're not breaking out of it. Hey, what's your status? Where's your gun status? Or there might be a slide lock and they don't notice it because of the distraction. So it's priming just solo words to get their brain thinking, and then have them remediate.
Right. And so what does the after action look like? A lot of instructors talk about training really, or the benefits of training, and training really begins when the scenario ends. And you talked about, this discussing the different aspects of the trainee's reactions during the scenario. But what's the strategy in tracking progression and measuring the effectiveness of the system? And the discussion, what does that look like during the after action?
Yeah, so the discussion is really important. Wholly adopted the student-centered feedback model and pulling the information out of them. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm part of the old guard now. I've got enough time on where I'm definitely one of the old guys. The time of having the instructor telling you exactly what you did right and exactly what you did wrong is over. Doesn't help. I can tell you, as being a product of that, some people it does, most people it doesn't. So literally just asking them questions. All right, what do you see? What happened? What do you feel? What do you think? How do you respond? What do you think you did good? What do you think you did bad? How do you do it differently? And let them explain the answers to those questions, as opposed to, all right, hey, you really could have tucked in a little better here, because they don't remember that. Let them think about it first. Then on top of that, we recorded everyone's scenario and did a playback, because on top of thinking we're all going to respond a certain way, a lot of us think we look like John Wick when we're doing something, and most of the times we don't. So, this gives them an opportunity to self-critique before we even go into that student-centered feedback model. let them look at, see what they did themselves, and then they can get a better idea on how they responded.
Mm-hmm. And what's the overall officer feedback? Do they find it beneficial?
Yeah, very positive. You've got your quintessential 10%, 80%, 10%, in the workforce, but overall, everyone's enjoyed it to the degree that you can. What I will say is, so like I said, we had that the introduction period, that non-reality based introduction
Mm-hmm.
period. Those that tried it that day, more often than not, said that the tasks, because on that first introduction day, I had them, I'd engage it and have them try to pick up a pen to show them that, the arm's legitimately out of play now. You can't move it. And they said that on day 2 in the scenario, they found it easier because they had that exposure on day 1.
Mm-hmm.
Also, most of them will say that it's not painful. It's more of a distraction than pain because it's something new. They've never felt it before.
Mm-hmm.
And your brain automatically goes into that, oh crap, this must be painful because I can't move my arm. But wait a minute. No, it's really not. I can do everything else and remediate, get back to work, and get back in the fight. So there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of realization on the student side of it, where it's nothing they felt before. We've tried other options. We've looked at other products, and there's a lot of good products out there. A lot of them are generalized. The A.U.Fire system found is the only one that really specifically targets the arm, the limb. Whether you want to target the bicep, the inner forearm, the outer forearm, depending on the injury that you're working with. Mm-hmm. So as studies have shown, it really shows that it's more akin to real life than an overall torso zap or something of that nature.
Yeah. No, this is incredible insights. And so, with that being said, are there any specific features or functionality that you'd like to see A.U.Fire incorporate in the future to further enhance officer training?
Yeah. So I know I'll tell you what, the communication has been fantastic with Tim and Rick from A.U.Fire. I know we were an early adopter of it. And I sing its praises as much as I can. I like to feel I'm one of their biggest unofficial cheerleaders in the area for the Northeast here. I'll show it to anybody, have anybody come down and try it from other departments, try to, I see it as a great product. I really do. Full disclosure, I'm not going to, I don't get paid by them at all. I've got no dog in the fight other than the fact that I do see it as a tool that would benefit not only to the existing veteran officer, but especially in the academy setting. Immediate exposure and reality-based training we have in our local academies here. So, and to your point, like we were saying with features, and talking with Tim, he has alluded to some, possible design enhancements. I know he was looking to expand to other limbs, which I think would be phenomenal. The statistics do show that majority of officers in shooting situations tend to get hit in the arms and the head. So right now it does cover the basis of what we do see in real life. However, in talking with other people at the conference and other conferences, having leg hits is not uncommon, or our vests only go so far down. Having a hit in the abdomen, and that's a possibility. Expansion pack would be nice, and if you look at their product, you can see that they have that in mind and the design of it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, excellent. That's a good point. And you guys had produced a phenomenal promotional video showcasing A.U.Fire, and I think I'll edit that video in so the viewers can see that.
Especially when it's your dominant hand.
Yeah. Today in our regular in-service training, we're introducing a new product that we're able to bring to the department, the A.U.Fire training system that uses electrical stimulation, muscle stimulation to stimulate your muscles to kind of give a roundabout idea of what it might feel like to get shot. And then you're able to achieve a goal, like break that stress and that mental distraction, build a neural pathway into achieving that goal, and through repetition of doing this task multiple times, it increases officer survival.
You guys are going to be in an ambush scenario, okay?
You have your little Alamo station here, your point of cover. We want you to work through the threats, right? If you get hit, okay, remember what he said in the video yesterday. Self-aid, buddy aid, or win the fight. Threat down. Well, it builds confidence. That's number one goal, is to build confidence so that, I mean, none of us want to be able to get into an officer-involved shooting or get into any type of situation like that. But if and when it were to happen, they have the confidence that they can work through the pain, work through the stress.
Shots fired, tourniquet applied.
We've done many constraint-led training, taking things out of play. I'll tell you, hey, take your left hand, put it in your vest, take it out of play, right? Does that come even close to this? Can we mimic this in any other way that you know?
Just to try to get that gun out of your hand.
Yeah. You like it? It's real. It's real. Right. This is one avenue of training that we've never been able to achieve without using this system. A better trained officer is much more beneficial for the department, much more beneficial for the city. We can't thank the mayor enough for his support in this. I put him through this himself, and he was sold immediately when he tried it.
So for departments considering simulation systems like A.U.Fire, what are some key factors they should weigh when, making their decision?
Key factors, well, obviously, I mean, I know like any other department, cost is the biggest thing, but if you want to improve your training program, if you want to give your guys and girls the best and closest to reality experience possible, to prepare them not only for a realistic situation, but to give them confidence in their abilities in that situation, it's the best that we have right now. It really is. It's one of the, perfectly said to my guys when we did our introduction on day one. I said, all right, hey, look, why do you get sprayed in the academy? And they, usually, so you can fight through it, what it feels like, and, it's going to happen. Okay. Why do you get tased? And everyone kind of says, oh, why do we get tased? Because if that might works, you can't work through it. But, and then I asked, all right, well, can you work through getting shot? And everyone says, yes. I said, well, you haven't been shot. How do you know? I can't ethically shoot you so that you can see what it feels like and know how to respond. And that, again, like I said, is that gap in training where we can't ethically do it. And this is the closest thing that we have right now that can simulate that and give them an experience to give them that confidence that they know that they can respond. They know they can fight through it. Yeah, we're only going to, as the saying goes, you're only going to fall back on your training. No one's ever going to rise to the level of, superhero performance if they never train for the level of superhero performance. It's almost, I don't want to say you're training someone for failure by not getting this product, but if it's available, if you have a tool available to bring you that much closer to realism, to put you in a situation in a moment where you're going to physically, mentally, and emotionally be the closest you can to the real event, well, why not get that product?
Worst case scenario, as novel as it is, why aren't you training for it?
Right.
So I would definitely encourage to go back to view the discussion with Tim Pierce. He's got an incredible backstory. It's an incredible discussion, discussing the features and functionality of the system, as well as viewing that promotional video and the implementation in a training environment. And hearing from the boots on the ground. It's one thing where, the designers, the developers obviously discuss their system and all the bells and whistles that it can provide. But how is that system actually being used? What's the feedback from the end users? And here it is. So Erek, before we conclude, are there any other topics that you wish to delve deeper into?
No, I think we hit everything. This is it's a great discussion. Thanks for having me.
Short and sweet, to the point. So it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. And again, thank you for taking the time to come onto the podcast.
Yeah, thanks you as well. Take care.
Bye now.